thrifters and sellers. Today I have got a great video for you. I'm going to share with you 5 underrated items that you could be walking past that might bring you really big profits. These are 5 types of items that I have enjoyed selling over the years, and I think it's something that you might be able to incorporate into the things that you are looking for when you're out at garage sales, estate sales, and thrift stores. I try to focus on smaller items because I don't have a lot of space in my basement for my workroom and all of my inventory. So these are smaller items that you can find to flip for a good profit. Some of these items can sell individually by themselves for 20, 30, 40 or more dollars. And some of them are what I like to call the mortar. So there's bricks and there's mortar. So those bricks are those big sales that are bringing in big profits. And the mortar are those smaller sales, $10, $15, that might bring in smaller sales but are consistent over time. Especially with some of these smaller items that you might be able to find in a big lot where you can buy a big shoebox full of them and part them out and make a good profit over time. And as we're going along, if you think of any more small items that can pack a big punch, leave a comment because I learn from you guys, and check those comments because we all learn from each other. There's plenty of junk out there for everybody and people are willing to buy it. So let's keep sharing and learning and selling. The first item that I want to talk to you about are patches. And I'm talking about like patches for clothing. I bought a box. It was a shoe box that had keychains and patches and all kinds of stuff in it, stickers, from a garage sale, and it was $5 for the whole box, and it had some Harley Davidson patches in it amongst other things. And those patches have been selling for really good money along the way, some of them 20, 30 plus dollars. One of them just went over to Germany yesterday. And I wanted to share with you, if you see a gallon bag or you see a bunch of patches at a garage sale or in a grab bag at a thrift store and they're not too much, it might be worth checking them out. So here I just put in patch just to see what all popped up. And this is just a tactical patch that maybe I wouldn't have even realized what it was, but this is a patch that sold just recently for $50. Here's another one. It's a navy Nartu patch. I'm going to butcher the names again. Sold for $50. And here, just doing a quick search of recent solds, I see this Tampa patch that sold for $12.99. And then this Thompson, I'm not even sure what this is, sold for $25. You never know what someone's looking for. Here's another one, Tranquility is Hunting. This one sold for $24.95. I thought I'd go ahead and pull in some big number patches that have sold. Here's one that sold for $300. This is Antarctic Research Program. That was pretty impressive. Then this Iditarod Mushers patch sold for $200. Some of these vintage patches, I mean, they could just be thrown in with a bunch of other patches, you guys. And this vintage embroidered, I'm not even sure what it says, Letterman's jacket, Secret Society, sold for $129.99. And then here are a couple other ones. Michigan Living Resources and Bald Eagle sold for over $100, $115 on each of those. The next thing to look for, which is often overlooked, are fountain pens. And these can be found oftentimes in a Ziploc bag filled with other pens. A lot of times people that are hosting garage sales and estate sales or even at thrift stores, they don't want to go through every single pen individually. So they just group them up, throw them in a bag, and slap a price on the whole bag of them, usually for pretty cheap. I recently got a Mont Blanc pen. It wasn't a fountain pen, but I got a Mont Blanc rollerball pen at an estate sale for under $1 because I bought it with a few other pens and pencils. So when I see fountain pens and a lot of times really nice mechanical pencils, I definitely pick those up, especially if the price is right. So here you can see, and this is just sold. I don't have it narrowed down, but you can look. This is 39,000 sold for fountain pens. So here you see a Waterman's that sold for $225. Here were 3 that sold for $74. Another that sold for $65. Definitely worth taking a look to see if you've got any fountain pens or vintage rollerball, Mont Blanc, or mechanical pencils, like really nice mechanical pencils, in with bags of random pens and pencils. This pen sold for $660. And just on we go. This is not even the full pen, it's just the parts, the outer casing for the pen. Some of these, I mean, as I scroll, it's just high price after high price after high price. So keep an eye out for those fountain pens. There were so many high-end, like high ticket price fountain pens that sold. I really had to weed it down by ones that look like you could just find it in a cup with a bunch of other pens. But tons of Mont Blanc sold. This one sold for $4,000. This is another that's a Krone Galileo Magnum that sold for $3,500. I haven't found this one before, but I have found two Mont Blanc. I found a sterling silver Tiffany pen, and then let's see, what else have we got? We've got Nakayashi, and then we've got a Waterman. I was trying to pick some different brands, not just because there's a lot of Mont Blancs that are sold, but I wanted to pick a few other brands so you'd have a few names to have in the back of your mind when you're out there looking. Then here's another Townsend, and this is Oma's The Gentleman's Seaman Piston Fill Fountain Pen. Just take a look. I mean, it doesn't hurt to pop those pens open because you could be looking at something that's thousands of dollars. Here's an Aurora Cellini fountain pen sold for $900. And another Mont Blanc and a Jean Pierre Lapine fountain pen that sold for $899. They are out there and you can find them. I have gotten, like I said, two Mont Blancs. So they're out there if you look. Next, this is a really fun one for me. This is vintage keychains. And I have sold so many keychains for crazy prices. Some of the wildest ones that I've sold that I thought, well, this is not, is like Louisiana lottery. I sold 2 or 3 Louisiana lottery keychains, I don't know, $25 or so a piece. So keep an eye out. You never, like I said, you never know what somebody's going to want. I bought a big lot of buttons that had buttons and keychains. The box that had the patches in it had some keychains thrown in there, and those sell pretty regularly, and $10, $15, $25 for keychains. Let's just scroll through. I didn't sort these by anything fancy, just sold listings. 8,100 sold for vintage keychains. Right off the bat, there's a fun little frog sold for $10. Here's a little anchor that sold for $15. I noticed that a lot of times the automotive ones might sell for a little more. So here's a Toyota keychain that sold for $25. And here's another Zippo and a Jaguar keyring sold for $30, $40. And here are a few other fun ones. This is a vintage Lego keychain sold for $31. This one, a Ford keychain, $21. Datsun, $21. So as you can see, there are varieties and prices all over the place, but you never know till you jump in. If you find a bag or a box filled with keychains for $3, $4, $5, grab them up, part them out, because even with them, let's say you pay a quarter a piece for them and you sell it for $10, $20, you're looking at a good $10 or $15 profit on something you spent a quarter on. Here's a little roller skate, almost $20. And look at this, solid brass Mercedes-Benz, $90 for this keychain. Let's talk about these high-end keychains. Again, I had to really narrow my search because there were so many high-end keychains that came from high-end brands like Chanel and Louis Vuitton. They were purse hangers. So I was trying to really narrow it down, but there were so many up there. This is a chrome heart dice keychain sold for $520. And then there were a number of these Coach. Some of them were the leather ones. This one sold for $499, but I saw a number of the metal, different Coach keychains that may have been just purse hangers. This was a Nintendo Zelda hourglass keychain, sold for almost $500, $450. So gaming keychains, different old brands. There were quite a few different Ferrari ones. This one sold for $400. Again, you know, somebody may not realize and they just throw it into a bag or a bucket with a bunch of other keychains. Here are 2 Kiss keychains. I saw a number of Kiss ones up there as well, sold for $350 a piece on these. So seeing those vintage keychains, yeah. And I kicked myself. I had like 2 or 3 of these back in the 90s. They're like little, you pop open the top and there's like a little alligator inside that wiggles around. They were so cute. Don't have it anymore. All right, there's another Ferrari, but man, I wish I still had that. I think I had a panda one, and I had an alligator for sure. I know I had an alligator one. Then this was a Attack on Titans keychain. So when you find these, like I find these like Harry Potter ones, I just take a quick picture of it and see if it's a rare one that might be worth selling. Here's a little Hello Kitty one. So if you see those, they've got a little button, and when you push it, the top pops open, and I guess it winds up the little critter inside, and so it like wiggles back and forth, and they're really cute, but man, I wish I'd kept them. Then here's a couple other, there's a Grateful Dead keychain that sold. There's another one of these Coach ones that sold for $100. And then this is a Jacksaw Chevrolet, just a random dealership. There's Intel. And then we've got one that's a measuring tape and vintage jack of clubs, $75. I alluded to the pinback buttons that I got, and here are some that have sold on eBay lately. I don't put mine on auction, so a lot of times I don't even look at the auction prices. I'll come over and I'll select used, and let's select buy it now so that it weeds out the auction priced ones. This is, I believe in yesterday, looks like a little Beatles button, $25 on that. I've sold a number of not only political buttons but replica political buttons, and they sell for a really good profit. This button sold for $14. Here you see a general's photo, sold for $20, and this is a vintage gay pride civil rights button that sold for $119 for one button. Here's a few more fun ones. Look at this, I'm available. Yep, so that one sold for $35, and here's a few more that sold right around $20. World's Horniest Irishman. Come on, $20. As you can see, there's a lot of money in pinback buttons. I will say that I don't get this price for every single button I've got, but when I list them, I usually won't put the price below $14.99, anywhere from $12 to $14.99. If someone sends me an offer for $10, I'll usually take it. But they're really quick to list, front, back measurements. They're really quick and easy to store and ship. I mean, what's not to love? All right, big ticket pinback buttons. We've got an Iowa Rose Bowl button sold for $375. A vintage Betty Boop one that sold for $180. There were so many pinback buttons. I had to really narrow down by just ones that I thought looked kind of random, that I'm like, see, just to show like random things. This looks like a homemade one from the March on Washington, sold for $152. And there were a number of ones that were from different marches or different movements that I saw. Here's one for the Black Panther Party that sold for $124.95. I mean, these are super easy. Just take your phone and take a picture with Google image search and see what it pulls up. Then we've got Ajax Cycles, and we've got Hickory cycling brands. These are not ones that I'm familiar with, but they sold for almost $100 a piece. Stamp Out Pay Toilets and No News is Good News. That's from the Great Space Coaster. Both of those sold for right around $75. Big money on these. And then from pinback buttons, we're going to antique buttons. A lot of times at estate sales, there'll be a whole room with craft supplies and a sewing room usually. If you can find a button bag or a box of buttons, you might be sitting on a gold mine. So again, these aren't sorted by anything fancy, just ended recently, completed and sold listings. And you can see their metal buttons that have sold for $15, $20. I mean, this is just a vintage card of Austrian crystal buttons that sold for $25. So you can sell them in a lot if you have multiples of the same kind. These sold for $15.99, or singles. I mean, this one sold for $15.99 on its own. And as you can see, here's another antique brass button that sold for $36. I know there have been times that I have walked past the buttons, and I think going forward, I'm going to make sure that I pick them up, because even parting them out, they're small, they're easy. I mean, that's what I like. Easy to store, easy to ship, not going to take up a lot of space in my workroom. And I don't mind waiting. I don't mind having something that sells consistently over time and makes that mortar for my house. Love the big bricks, but I need the mortar for my house as well when I'm selling. Look at this gorgeous micro mosaic button, $40. Mother of pearl bakelite, $15. That one's on auction, but yeah, lots of really cool buttons and really cool prices that you can get for selling buttons. Buttons was another one I really had to go through and narrow down, because there were a lot of Chanel buttons that people had loose from goodness knows what. But there were a number vintage brass buttons. Then these are silver turquoise buttons that sold for $129.95.
there were lots of different metal ones, kind of like this, like somebody just snipped them off a jacket or something. Vintage pewter, silver, unicorn, crest, lion. They sold for $100. But like I said, they could be just in a mayonnaise jar that's grandma had up on her shelf. She just snipped them off because that's what she did. And then here are a few other sets that sold for right around $75.
I'd love to hear from you more underrated small items that people might walk by when you are at thrift stores, estate sales, garage sales, because there is money in those little items if you're willing to do the work to part them out, which I am. Leave a comment, let me know what else you like to find and pick up, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.